Morning. Good morning. Welcome to the first community meeting of the 2025-26 school year. We'll let folks keep joining. So great to see everybody. Bright and early on a dreary Friday. Yeah, thank you. So many great faces. So I would love to name check everybody, but there's far too many of you for that.
Mhm.
It's good. This is engagement, right? Is what we want. We'll give people folks maybe one more minute before we'll fire it up. Day 15, I think. 165 to go. We're almost there. If you ask who's counting, my son is counting. That's mine's me. Only 32 Fridays to go.
Who's counting?
Uh, all right, it is 10:02. What do you think, Keith? Should we get going?
Yep. I think you got majority of the stakeholders in the room, and so as people come in, we'll continue to let them in. But the floor is yours.
All right, all right. Welcome. It's 2025-26 school year, August, first meeting of the year. We're off and running. I do want to recognize a few folks that I see. I see my colleague, Katie Howard, District 1 representative. I see Audrey Sofianis, Cluster Superintendent Travis Norvell, who's running a few different things at this time, but he's bouncing back and forth. And if there's other folks, the board members I don't see, but if they drop in, I'll try to recognize them. So why do we do these meetings? We do them to see everybody. We do them for three reasons: to share what's going on in the district, hear your perspective, and just remember, this is not a decision-making meeting. This is an information exchange. So I'm trying to learn from y'all. We want to answer your questions, and at least if we can't answer it here with the folks on the call, then we'll circle back and get you the information that you need. Just a couple of quick norms, just to make sure that we use everyone's time effectively. First of all, if you are a hacker, we missed you from last spring. You are not welcome in this meeting. Keith has muted everybody. So Keith is running this with a tight fist. So you are muted just in case, and you'll have to come off mute and Keith when you raise your hand, and Keith will allow you. We'll get you into the meeting. That's just a way to keep us on track. Couple other things. Presume good intent. Let's give and make space so folks can be heard. Feel free to use the chat. It will be monitored. We've got a bunch of district folks who can help pull that information out, and so that's a great way to communicate back and forth. We're going to try and keep this to an hour to respect folks' time, so we're going to use our time as efficiently as we can. I do have a newsletter, and I'll put that information in the chat. I know Katie has a newsletter too. It's just another way to it's more information than you need, but not more than you deserve. And so feel free to sign up for that if you are just interested in what's going on and hear about some key deadlines. And so we do these meetings to hear from you all. So so we try to have a little bit of structure. So we're going to do three things: some general updates, then we're going to hear a key topic, which we lift up from the board meeting. And this week, it'll be an HR update on highly effective teachers that we heard last time, and making sure that we have a highly effective teacher in front of all of our kids. And I think we've made some really great progress there. So we'll hear a quick update on that and have a little discussion about that. And then we'll open up the conversation for Q&A, and we'll just have that moderated by Keith to make sure that everybody is heard. So a few quick updates just to get us going. As folks know, day 15 is underway. So it's been a pretty smooth start to school. Thanks to all the teachers, parents, getting kids up on time, principals, and all the administration for getting everything rolling to a good start. We have no cell phones in our buildings. This is something that we've been working in the Midtown cluster at the Midtown leadership who's been driving that last year. It's now become state law next year. And so you should see in all of your buildings a big step forward here to get ahead of the state law. I just appreciate the Midtown leadership here. As someone that has a kid that says it's not even worth bringing my phone to school anymore, like he's punishing me or something. That is what we want. We want kids focused on tasks. We want loud cafeterias, and we want kids engaged with teachers. So excited about that work. Over the summer, we extended Dr. Johnson's contract. I think many of you all know that. He's had a great first year, balanced that budget that came in with a lot of challenges that he was born into. It allowed us to have the highest paid teachers in Metro Atlanta, average salary. You hear a little bit more about that in a minute. So we're very excited about progress was made in his first year. So extend the board 9-0 was very enthusiastic to extend Dr. Johnson's contract. And he's launched his facility master plan review, which we'll talk about in a second. But that process is off and running. I want to spend a second on milestone results because that's why we're here, right? We're here to educate kids. We're here to improve student outcomes. And I'm going to share 2 slides, and these were there's more detail in the board report, but just to give folks an idea of kind of where we finished last year. And as a reminder, milestone data is we test kids at the end of the year. It's a state test. We report out. There's a lot of data on the slide, and I'll just lift up 2 things. And the data that we look at is grades 3 through 8, the end of grade assessment, and also 3rd grade English language arts. So what you see is the story here, from my perspective, is very, very kind of flat gains 3 through 8 in reading, and a step back in 3rd grade reading, which is one we really care about. It's a lot of conversation. This is a statewide issue. There's a lot of conversation on why it's happening. From my perspective, and kind of what we work on in our day job, and my day job is really the first time this COVID class was tested. This kindergarten class was tested, and those kids were really impacted by not having that year of instruction. So we see that they lost basically a whole year, unless mom or dad was there with that child. They lost a whole year, and so we're seeing it in the data. We're seeing that although we're making general progress grade 3 through 8, lots of work to do in grade 3, and we're hopeful this is a good baseline as we make our readers assessment and get our teachers trained in the science reading. Just a quick note on math, a much better story on math. Math kids much further away from COVID. The math took the biggest hit during COVID. And you see, Atlanta Public Schools right there at the top with our partner districts. Again, lots of work to do to catch up to where we are. 35% of our kids on grade level is a call to action, and we need to hear that call to action. At the same time, we need to recognize that we are making progress and the arrows are pointing in the right direction. So happy to engage in more conversation about that. Just want to make sure that we put the data at the front of the meeting, because there's lots of stuff we don't want to talk about, but we have to make sure that we lift up student outcomes. So that is the business that we're in. I'm going to stop sharing that for a second. And then one more update before we get into, actually 2 more updates. One is it's the last day of qualifying as today. So if you look at this and say, I want to do this, I'd love to be on a school board or city council, whatever's interesting to you. Today's your last day. Got to get down to City Hall by 4:30. As folks know, Katie and I, we don't choose who we work with. You choose who we work with. So that'll open. I think board seat 8 is for folks in Midtown cluster and District 3, Midtown Jackson cluster. By and large, that is the only seat you'll probably see on your ballot. There might be a few folks who wandered in from Garden Hills or up north that can vote in District 2. So that is up, but it's just the even number seats. And so look for more information on that in the coming months. But vote. Voting is important. It shows it's another way to stay engaged, and that it's a good 2-way process to hold your board members accountable. Last thing before I hand it over to our HR team is, as many of you heard, there's a facility master plan process underway. I'm particularly, this is something that's been going on for a while, and particularly a few things I just want to lift up about this process that I think folks should keep in mind as we move over the next couple months. The first that I'm really excited about it is the representative community task force. It included a GO team member and a bunch of other community members from every school in our region. They kept to a tight schedule. They've been meeting over since May. They'll be meeting again until through November. When we finally get something in front of the board to take action on. It is database. We have a third-party consulting firm that's driving this work. They've had success in Philadelphia, I think in Houston. They know how to do this. They know how to take folks through this process. And it's synced up to SPLOS, because we do want to make sure that whatever comes out of this process is aligned with our facility investments, so we stretch our dollars as far as we can. So it is the headline is we're built for 70,000 kids. We have 50,000 And we have 50,000 students roughly enrollment. So we need to make sure the program matches the needs of our communities, the needs of our kids, in order to free up resources to do things like expanding program and being the highest paid teacher salary in Metro Atlanta. That's why we're going through this process. We are there's a bunch of meetings going to be on Monday, so I don't want to spend a ton of time in this conversation getting into some of the weeds here, because conversations on Monday where folks will take you through the whole process, and we'll get more information. We can get more information. And actually, if somebody can put those meeting times in the chat, Travis, if you're available, if you can drop. I think there's a virtual meeting on Monday, and then a in-person meeting on Monday where we'll get into the different scenarios that are being proposed. With that, I'd love to turn it over to Dr. Mighty to talk a little bit about the talent management update. We'll hear from her for a few minutes, and then we'll have questions around talent, and then we'll have a broader conversation about whatever y'all want to talk about for the 30-40 minutes or so. Before I turn over to Dr. Mighty, just a couple things that I was really impressed with in this talent update. As folks know, we don't make anything in Atlanta Public Schools. We're just teachers in front of students in the presence of content. And so it's critical that we have a highly valued, highly skilled teacher force. And I think we're making steps with this in our talent work to get the right teaching force in front of our kids and show them that they're valued and that reward them appropriately. We have so much more work to do, but this is not disconnected from the budget issue. Remember, we're more than 80% of our budget is people. And so that's why this issue is so critical to our work. So with that, and I see Jessica Johnson. Hey, Jessica, a board member joining us. If there's others, I welcome you too. With that, Dr. Mighty, is she here?
Yes, I am here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Dr. Mighty. So if you don't mind taking us through a few of the, Dr. Mighty is the Executive Director of Talent Management. If you don't mind just taking us through a few of the slides from the board presentation last week, just to update the community.
Yes, absolutely. Do I need to share my screen? Okay. Okay, and is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, perfect. All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Nardianne Mighty, Interim Executive Director of Talent with HR. As board member Ken Zeff stated, we are here for students, and they are our priority, of course. And looking at the milestones data, we do see that we are going in the right direction. The Wallace Foundation, of course, does tell us that the school leadership is second only to teaching and the impact learning. And so we know, as he stated, that it is a call to action for us to move forward. Our HR work is designed to ensure every student benefits from great teaching paired with strong visionary leadership. We are deliberate in how we recruit, develop, and retain the people who have the greatest impact on our success. As a result of that, we know our metrics need to be clear and bold. And so just to let you know, today, APS has 84% of our teachers have more than 3 years of experience. Our goal is to have 85.2% by the end of this school year, and then 90% by 2030. Our retention rate for last year was also 85%. We are aiming for 86% this year and 90% by 2030. Stability in the classroom means stronger relationships, deeper learning, and better outcomes. And so we want to ensure that we are increasing that. And then regarding compensation, we lead the Metro Atlanta area with our average teacher salary being $88,840. We are on track to reach $91,072 by 2026 and $100,000 by 2030, which is in line with the superintendent's vision. In order to do that, we are working to execute 2 core strategies to increase the concentration of highly effective teachers and leaders. One, a focus on recruitment, selection, and development to strengthen every phase of the educator life cycle. and two, a total reward strategy that goes beyond the salary and deeply into the value proposition offered by our district to every employee who calls APS their home work. So looking at the first strategy, strategic recruitment, selection, and development, we are building smarter systems for hiring, developing, and positioning our talent, especially in schools where our students need the most experienced educators and more stable leadership. So how do we bring that to life? We use data-driven recruitment to identify and select the strongest candidates. We invest in continuous development so educators grow their impact over time. We provide targeted support to schools with the greatest need and align our talent decisions closely with instructional practices. So our results from our recruitment, selection, and development strategy show that we have meaningful progress and highlights where there is still work to do. We were super excited to start the year off with 99% of teacher vacancies filled. That was over 450 positions, and we did welcome nearly 200 new educators to APS. What that means is that from day one, qualified teachers are in place for our students, which minimize disruptions. We strengthened our candidate screening process to ensure quality, and we revamped our principal selection process. We wanted to be more rigorous, transparent, and aligned to our leadership expectations from the board and the superintendent, raising the bar for school leadership across the district. This year, our pipeline was very strong. 53% of our assistant principals and 60% of our principals were promoted from within. That demonstrates that we are developing talent and creating career pathways from our top performers. But we also want to ensure educator growth overall. So this year, from last school year, we had 325 teachers advance their careers through endorsements, credentialing opportunities, which increases their capacity to meet student needs. We want to highlight also our highest need schools, those that are state designated, to implement customized recruitment, selection, and development strategies, targeting that strengthens the instructional team so that we can have stability where it matters the most. Regarding our next steps, what do we do next? We are going to tier our schools this year by their performance, staffing, and student needs, using the data to target our recruitment, selection, and development strategies for our state designated schools. We're going to increase the reach of experienced teachers by focusing on our recruitment and hiring on those high-need schools, ensuring strong and stable instructional teams that are able to meet those needs the most. And we are very excited that by January 2026, we will launch APS is Able, the APS Academy for Building Leaders in Education. And that is our succession planning engine for developing teacher leaders, assistant principals, and principals who are ready to step in that leadership role across the district. Our second strategy is the competitive total reward strategy to focus on attracting and retaining high-performing talent. So how do we use our levers? We are going to maintain that competitive pay to keep APS leading the market, broaden the narrative so employees see the full value of working in APS beyond the salary, align professional learning in each school's specific needs, and empower schools to create additional earning opportunities tied to priorities and skills that impact student achievement. We will prioritize competitive base pay, and we will do that by prioritizing it over one-time incentives and stipends. We're going to partner with our communications team to launch an integrated marketing campaign that highlights the salary, benefits, and career growth. From certification prep to fully funded master's degree endorsements in critical or high-need subject areas. We have our associates to bachelor's program in special education. We have master's degree through grant-supported partnership with Georgia State University. And it is very important for us to ensure that we are marketing and allowing everyone to understand that working in APS goes beyond salary. We offer for the whole employee. We want to align professional learning to student needs. So for example, if you have a school that has increased English learners providing ESOL endorsements, if the gifted population is growing, gifted endorsement, if providing special education credentials where IEP caseloads are larger to ensure we are aligning to student needs. And then we want to give school leaders flexibility to offer stipends for supplemental duties that align with their priorities and contribute to student achievement. So those are we have bright spots in regards to leading the Metro Atlanta area in compensation, ensuring that we are working with our communications team, and ensuring that we are growing our teachers and our leaders within the district. So that's just a little bit about what we're doing from the HR standpoint. And I will turn it back over to board member Ken Zeff.
Thanks. See, we all strong. We all have to wait our turn. Thank you, Dr. Mike. This was super helpful, and I hope what people realize is vacancies matter, and that when we are constantly having to teach our kids to experience teacher transition all the time, that shows up in impact learning. But did anybody know, if I had asked the question when we started, the average teacher salary in APS was $89,000? I throw that number around and people look up. So the theory is we pay people well, we attract more, we retain more. So thank you for that, Dr. Mighty. So Keith, let's ask if we want to have a few minutes of questions just on this topic, and then we can roll into a broader conversation.
Yep. Thank you, Board Member Zeff. And good morning, District 3 stakeholders and APS stakeholders. We are super excited to welcome you back to the District 3 community meetings. As Board Member Zeff just stated, we will just take questions off of the HR report that Dr. Mighty just presented on. And so we do ask, if you do have questions directly to that, let's just hold questions for additional topics to later, but we just want to take those. And so, Dion, I see your hand is up. Do you have a question for Dr. Mighty or just the team? You had to come off of.
I just put it in the chat. My question is a general chat, not HR.
Okay. All right. Well, when
that comes around,
we got you. Yep. Just raise your hand back up and we'll take you. Stacy, let's see here. Good morning, Stacy. Do you have an HR question?
I do. Thank you so much for unmuting me. So I really enjoyed the presentation. I love all the talk about recruiting, developing and retaining teachers. But what I didn't hear anything about was evaluating and assessing their performance when they get in the job, preferably on a regular basis. We all know that there are underperformers in every organization. So what is APS doing to identify and address underperformers and either swiftly manage them up or out?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, we do have a performance evaluation where teachers and educators are evaluated throughout the school year. So it is not a snapshot. They do have multiple evaluations within the fall and the spring semester. As you stated, we also do, if somebody needs additional support, we do put a plan in place to support them. And that plan is supported by other people within the school. For example, instructional coaches, assistant principals, the principal, and even the cluster superintendent. So we are being very intentional to ensure that we are evaluating our educators, and again, not at a one snapshot, but multiple times throughout the year, and add additional support when needed throughout that process.
Let me thank you for that, Dr. Martin. Let me say, Stacey, this is something what you've just raised is a challenge, I think, throughout public education. And we've gone through various high stakes evaluations that haven't quite got it right. I agree. I think there's intentionality that Dr. Mighty identified, which I think is important. But what I also believe long term, if we're at the highest pay, if we offer this compensation, we're signaling that this is a great place to work, that instead of 2 applicants for a job, we'll get 5 applicants, 6 or 7 applicants. And hopefully over time, in addition to what Dr. Maya said, but we're strengthening our teacher pool by making it more attractive and more competitive. But I think you're exactly right. And I think it is, it's going to require our principals with needing a lot of support from HR to get to make sure that we have a high quality, highly effective teacher in every. All right, Keith, you want to keep going?
Yeah, I think Dion had just a general. Oh, there we go. We got Lisa. Let's see here. See if I can.
Thank you. So going back to Stacy's question, is that evaluation process documented so that parents can see, not obviously not the reports, but what a teacher might be evaluated against? Just kind of, you know, what is the evaluation outline if parents are curious how teachers are evaluated? Is that available anywhere?
Yes, so we do use the state provided evaluation system of teacher keys. And so that is public information. If you visit the state, you can see the standards that they are evaluated against. And I did see a question in the chat in regards to see if they are paid based on performance. Teachers are not currently paid based on performance. So just want to be able to answer that.
That has been a complicated, the whole industry has gone back and forth on this issue about high stakes, it leads to high stakes testing but ultimately it requires a thoughtful principal supported to make sure that that teachers get the support they need to be effective. There was another question in the chat, Dr. Mighty, about the timeline. Do you want to speak to that?
So there is we do provide a general timeline, but anytime that there is a concern with an employee overall, that concern is addressed at that time and support is put in place. So HR does work very closely with principals and their administrative team in order to support them in all concerns if something happens at the school, whether that is performance or anything else that's related to the employee. So whenever that occurs, we will support them and be hand in hand and address it.
Ms. Sofianis, do you want to talk a little bit about how you support principals in evaluation?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, everything that Dr. Mighty has said is true. If there ever is a concern, the principal jumps right into it. We actually have resources that we help principals use to help teachers. What we're trying to do is improve teacher performance, right? So that's the bottom line goal. But still, if a principal is providing that support, and it could be through resources, coaches work, the teacher actually taking courses. We have a whole course bank that they can be assigned to do based on wherever the performance deficit is. If a teacher is not able to get to that proficient level, that's where it is looked at in terms of non-renewal. So there is a timeline guidance for us, but as Dr. Mighty said, that is a guidance. Whenever there is an issue, the principal jumps right in, provides that support, and then I help them just with gathering maybe additional resources or thinking through what kind of support a teacher might need. Because I do work with so many schools, I see different things being done in different schools. So it's sometimes sharing those resources, like, here's a course, here's a book, here's a classroom that can be visited that really shows this is an exemplar. And so that occurs as well.
Thank you for that. And as parents out there too, if you're feeling that your teacher's not being responsive, you always have points of escalation and talk to the principal, and that feels like it's not productive. And that's what Ms. Sofianis, as principal supervisor, is in her office is there to be responsive. Do you want to move into general? We'll just open it up.
Yeah. It's 10:30, so we got board members. If you're fine, we're gonna just open it up for the next 30 minutes to all general comments, questions. And so, Dion, you'll be our first one.
Hi, thank you for having this conversation today. I did log on to Erica Mitchell's, and much of the conversation was around facilities master plan. So I'm going to take this opportunity to ask a question. I'm a task force member, a community member. I wasn't a Go team member representative, so I'll just preface that. I do want to say that as a task force member, we are presented that HPM has been meeting with Board of Education members and have been meeting with the superintendent. And then we are given the framework from that and options from that and asked for our input. So I think there's some clarity around that I just want everyone to understand the pieces of, and I hope the district discusses that a little bit more. I have a couple concerns that I wanted to ask. Task force members and community members did ask for a Midtown cluster specific meeting, and the initial response was that they are only meeting with the impacted communities. I am bringing that to your attention because, the Midtown cluster has been dealing in different pockets with overcrowding for years. For instance, Morningside, we had to scramble and do a case center. My youngest was the first one in that case center that came together in 5-6 months. We have conversations in the community. We are impacted. And largely when you look at the numbers that facilities master plans provided the 10-year projection out, we were supposed to be at 1383 this year at Grady/Midtown. We are over 1700, and Howard, which is over our projection, our budgeted projection. So we're not getting even full funding for our children, and we're a non-title school. That's also for Howard, which last time I heard the number, which was last week, we're over 77, again, non-title school. And we will not get full funding for that. It's around 10, 11,000 if we would have been budgeted correctly versus 59, I think. So have some questions about that. I do think our community deserves a conversation with the facilities master team, board members, as well as the district in a timely manner. And I just wanted to thoroughly advocate for that. And then last part is previous years, we've been provided more data in these discussions, and the task force has not been provided that data. We've asked for that since the first meeting. Housing analysis, birth rate information by cluster, by schools, building permits. We've seen that stuff in the past. So just asking for more robust data to be accessible to everyone across Atlanta so they understand kind of what they see there out in the news in regards to developments, what they see on the ground in their community, and what is going on in their schools as well. So they can actually see the numbers.
Thank you for that, Dion. And let me deal for the first question. I think is right on the Midtown cluster having a separate conversation. And there was some conversations, and we will move in that direction. The initial meetings that came out, just so folks can be aware, and I think Travis put the information in the chat, are the communities that are directly impacted. And so it's just a question of prioritization, but it's not a question of that it's not a question of if but when. So we wanted to make sure that those were opportunities that we were front and center, and just to rationalize those. By the way, those are open to everybody. Those are not so those are public settings, and will be recorded and shared. And yes, there will be a Midtown conversation. It's just a question of sequencing just as we move through this process. Again, we have a little bit of time. There's not going to be anything that comes before the board till November. So this is the process. But I hear you. I got an email from SINS last night and passing it on to the district, and we'll make that available for our community here. And then the question about projections on the task force, there is on the task force website, there is a detailed analysis of how they arrived at their information. But I agree there could always be more information, so I'll take that back. I'm not sure if Dr. Bradshaw. I don't know if he's on the call. But we'll take that back to the task force to make sure that, or to the consultants and to the people that put the facility master plan data together, to make sure that they're incorporating as many data elements as possible.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right.
And then,
so our next speaker, it will be Song.
Yep. Hey, good morning. This is Sung Hee Morris. So I'm a parent to children who attend Howard Middle School and also Springdale Park Elementary. And I know that there are going to be questions likely raised here about Midtown specifically. So I'm going to focus my question around Springdale Park. And so, again, I have a first grader there this year. And, I went through the whole rezoning process a couple of years ago. And there are many people on this call. And I've raised this previously. And I felt like on the last call that I was on, and when I raised this, I was pretty much kind of dismissed in terms of like the concerns that I had raised just around like the enrollment and the utilization of the school. And so, what I'm learning now about Springdale Park is that we are now going to be classified as a small school and we have less than 450 students enrolled. And I'm not quite sure like how this has happened because when we went through the rezoning process a few years ago, what we were promised is that it would be an equitable process. But what I've observed is that Springdale actually has taken like a pretty big hit in terms of enrollment, which I think impacts funding as well. And so when I hear from my daughter's friends, the parents, is that, when you hear about Morningside, they have 6 full first grade classes, VHE, 6 full classes, Mary Lynn, 4 full classes, and my daughter has 3 first grade classes at Spark. So I'm not quite sure what has happened there, but the enrollment is not balanced across the elementary schools. So I'm sure it's impacting other grade levels as well. Obviously, there's going to be more consequences down the road for funding and that type of thing. But I feel like I raised this before and it was just actually just you were quite dismissive about it on the call. I think that you were taking it kind of as like, I was like, hey, this is a high performing school that we have. And I think you were just commenting or focusing on like, oh, all of the schools are high performing in the Midtown cluster. And that completely like missed the point. My point was really around how the enrollment is not equitable across the board, or I guess the zoning that impacts enrollment is not equitable across the cluster. And so so I'll just wanted to share that.
Thank you. That's something, and I apologize if it came off as Smith. I don't remember the specific conversation, but yes, it is a valid concern, and it is a small school because of the zoning, because of the introduction of BHE into the environment. I do think it is important to note it is a super high performing school, and we're really proud of the results that Spark is getting. I will just to put in context, the small school supplement, just for other folks in the call, is for schools that it's designed to enhance schools that haven't received as much revenue because of their enrollment size. So we've been doing some research on this. It's the budget of Spark is 7.3 million. Their small school supplement is 45,000. So it is a relatively modest contribution to the overall budget. And what I think will happen at the end of this process is the programs will be preserved at Spark. There's not going to be this big walk back from Spark. It's actually a rethinking of the way we budget. When we have, and this is across the district, as we have these small school supplements, we're basically supplementing these less efficient uses of resources. So I think what you'll see coming through the budgeting process is that baked into the base, and that you won't see the impact to the Spark experience will be. I don't suspect you'll see. You're not going to see huge programs cut or anything like that. But I will say this. The input. We're hearing the input. We're receiving it. The most important thing is that the outcomes at Spark, and I think we're pleased with Dr. Tony and the community, but we do want to make sure that you all leave this call feeling confident. And we've had a bunch of communications with PTO members that you won't see a walk back of programs at Spark as part of this budgeting process.
Yeah, I know that there are a lot of questions here, and I don't want to monopolize the call, but I guess in addition to that, I mean, there are a lot of other impacts to a smaller school, right? From a community standpoint, parent involvement, participation. I mean, the culture of the school is different now than what it was before, right? When my 8th grader and 6th grader attended. So I feel like there are a lot of other implications as well outside of this funding piece as well. So thank you for listening, and I appreciate your feedback.
Can I jump in and just add something? Because I know this is a big concern at Spark, and I was principal at Morningside, and I also, we were all a part of that rezoning process between the primarily I think 4 schools were impacted. I will say, like, this is a wonderful opportunity I think, with facility master planning, and I haven't seen the survey. There is another survey coming out. And I do believe, and I'll just say this publicly, I do believe there is space, depending on, again, the community feedback and the input from everyone for, they really, we've got the outside cluster boundaries, but, you can look at those inside cluster boundaries. And I think based on community feedback and from all the schools, there could be some space because there has been a big variability since we rezoned. Schools have been up, schools have been down. And we're figuring that out. We're in day 15 today. It's the big enrollment headcount day where, we take a look at what our projections were with where it's landed. So I do think, I really encourage everyone from Spark and all the schools to fill out that survey. I'm hoping there's an area that maybe has a space for comments, but if not, you can send that to Let's Talk, so that we can get that input, because I do think there is a space now that we've been at it a few years since that initial rezoning to maybe retake a look at that. We also have a wonderful, very big, ambitious, audacious goal, which I am all in for, and that is that pre-K 4 and pre-K 3, increasing those opportunities for kids in the cluster. So when I think about that as a former elementary principal, I think about every school having the ability to have a pre-K. And maybe even a couple spots. I mean, that would just be the dream. And we're able to fit it in some schools and not in others. And so wouldn't it be great if we could fit it everywhere? So, and that's an issue at Morningside where they don't really have room for it. So I do think there is space for that. So I agree with everything that is being said. So please let your voice be heard through the surveys or the Let's Talk, especially as we're in the midst of this facility master planning, long-term process. This is a long-term process for facility master plan. So please let your voice be heard.
All right. Thank you. So we'll go back to Lisa, and then follow up with Dion.
Thank you. I was one of the SINS members that requested the Midtown cluster meeting. And the questions you're hearing about Spark, Ken, that was part of why we asked for it. Was we've been hearing from our Spark representatives the discussions and the concerns that they have about the impact of their school in the last rezoning. And so we really wanted to make sure there was a forum for them to come together for us as Midtown to come together as a community and ask these questions. And then also we saw in the possible scenarios that high schools could be expanded. So we felt if our high school is going to be impacted, we would like a chance to hear about it, recognizing that other clusters are more deeply impacted, and we don't want to try to jump ahead of what they are concerned about. But thank you for your response last night and for answering today. My question, though, because I was also on the District 5 meeting last week, is in addition to talking to the communities and talking about the impacts, is APS going to be looking at what the district, what the board, what we are doing as a city that is creating these inequitable enrollment patterns? Because it's just, there's valid points, right? Like, we've got a ton of engagement and involvement on one half of the city and less on the other. And it's not just blame the parents for not sending their kids there. There's deep structural reasons why this isn't happening. And I'd like to see more from APS as a part of this, of like, not just high level, yep, we're going to hire the best teachers, but, real concrete ideas and goals around increasing enrollment in areas that need it, and in a way that I think the community understands. I think we would all appreciate that, because we're here for Midtown right now, or most people here are here for Midtown, but we are part of a bigger ecosystem. And so we all need to be paying attention to the impacts that one half of the city keeps shouldering over and over and over every time we do these processes. So I just want to voice that I'd love to see something like that in the process.
I appreciate that, Lisa. And what you lifted up the challenge in Metro Atlanta. In many ways, we are consumers of decisions that were made generations ago. And so, I'll and I saw Katie nodding her head, so I'll give Katie. I want to pass to Katie in just a second to jump in. But just one thing I'll lift up that we're trying to do to build a more just, equitable Atlanta is around housing in partnership with the city and the a partnership we have with the city where we've taken properties that we own. APS is the largest landowner in the city. We have a bunch of properties that we can give to the city to develop into affordable housing to create stable communities, lower transiency, create more engagement, also can create opportunities for teacher housing. Those are some long-term efforts that we're working on. But you're right. I mean, we need to have this whole, that's part of this facilities master plan, is so we can all see this, that we pull on one thread, there's impacts elsewhere, but that we're all in together. Katie, did you want to? I saw you nodding. Do you want?
Sure. No, I appreciate you letting me chime in, and thank you, Lisa. You're always very intentional in making sure people are looking at the entire district, and so many people on this call are. And I 100% agree with Ken and focusing on how we repurpose some of our underutilized space and some of our buildings that have been essentially rotting. But also how we're really intentional during this process of going to schools, going to communities, talking with families who have kids in those schools, because they absolutely have voice, they absolutely have agency, they know their communities and they know their schools. And I think y'all all know I have Carver. Of course, I have Jackson, and Carver is a real area of focus for me. Incredible communities that feed into those schools. And we really need to be intentional about hearing that voice and making sure it's at the table. So I assure you, I'm definitely leaning in on that space, and I'm really excited about all the opportunities in the Carver cluster, as well as all of our clusters. But we have got to make sure community is at the table, because they 100% have voice, and they know what's missing and they know what they want more of. So thank you, Lisa, for bringing that up and for letting me chime in, Ken.
Well, and let me just lift up something that Ms. Sofiana said, which is that the whole point of it, you can't force parents to go to school or go to an environment that they're not comfortable with, but they will run to an environment where they feel like there's great opportunity. So that's the challenge ahead of us: is how do we build programs, how do we build strategies and interventions that parents seek out, and they can be that are at the Carver cluster at Washington, et cetera. And so that's the work ahead of us, and I think the facility master planning process can help us. All right, Keith, do you want to? Are we?
Yeah. We got Dion, and then we're at 10:48, so we got about 12 minutes or so.
Okay, my next question is, it's really what has been put in the chat and previous, again, as a parent of Morningside, where we were busting at the seams and eventually had to pivot last minute. When people say this plan, facilities long-term master plan, will be long decisions and lots of meetings, Midtown, respectfully, Midtown has been doing this for over a decade. We have been in these conversations for over a decade that some clusters have not been in. So I think the community is feeling exhausted when people are pretending like this is resetting, this is restarting. All of that hasn't happened. We kind of see, as Lisa said, there is a problem that, I don't mean to speak for her or whatever. There are city issues. There are some that are more focal. Jackson has a similar challenge in terms of overcrowding. So, task force wise, no solutions were presented until our last meeting, and then an addition was put up for Midtown with no information around it, no enrollment, nothing. With that said, in your working assumption slide, you have a 3 to 5 year goal will be to create a zone concept based on the current cluster model, creating multiple secondary school options for students in a geographical defined zone, introducing programmatic pathways. So here is my question. We're saying we're keeping cluster lines, but we're going to go to this zone model, which is going to open up secondary options. To me, we have a zone model right now, clusters, we have opened up lines. Anybody and everybody can do admin transfers as long as a school has room. So I don't see anything that we're adding to this process in 3 to 5 years, which will impact the elementary and middle school kids other than what we have right now. So my question to you is, will you be pulling out programs such as, we were told that the district is wanting this art school. We were not told we wanted an art school or asked for an art school. The community has not talked about that publicly. An art school was put on this. So my question is, Midtown and other schools, are you going to pull out all of the arts programs and force the children, should they want arts, to go to another school because that is only where it will be accessible? Like, what is really this model that you have to address the overcrowding? Because this to me sounds like you're going to be trying to make magnet schools or zone schools. And we've known that hasn't worked in the past. People just switched what their desire was. We had a lot of kids switch to journalism and mass communications and didn't leave the Midtown cluster. So the concern is we're still kicking the can down the line, and or you're going to take out programs that Midtown community members find value in at Midtown, and or just enlarge the school. So what is this zone model? What are these secondary pathways that are different than admin transfers? And will you be taking out programming out of Midtown schools? I think people who are buying homes now, who might want to sell their home, who may also want to apply their children out to a private school, they need to know these things.
Well, thanks for the question, Dion. Thanks for the service on the task force. I mean, there is a better forum for that conversation because I want to make sure everybody has the same set of information. There are 2 meetings on Monday that will get into the weeds on that because I want to take people through. People need to go through the data, through the journey, and I think that's what you'll see at both noon and 6 o'clock on Monday, and additional times over the next couple of weeks. I will say that, if there are interventions, if there are additional programs like an art school or something like that, that will not be in conflict with what happens at Midtown. It would be, those programs would still exist. These would be district-wide programs, but all of that is just is to be worked out and conjecture. Those are just ideas that are being thrown out. I go back to my previous comment of we need to create opportunities for parents that parents seek, and not that they're being forced to. I mean, and I'll just lift up Jackson as an example of when you built, 6-7 years ago, Jackson was not fully enrolled, Maynard Jackson High School. Then you get a IB program in there, you get high quality staff, high quality leadership, and now the school is busting. So this can happen when we make the right investments in all our schools, and we have this broad sense of the opportunities. I know we just have a few minutes left. I did want to recognize Dr. Tony and Dr. Bringsla. I saw you somewhere. Some of our wonderful elementary school principals. If there's others out there, you may be there, and I did want to check you. So I know we just have a couple minutes left. For these deeper conversations on what's coming out of the Facility Master Plan, you'll get an update later today that with some of the scenarios that are being proposed. And then, of course, there's a whole series of meetings that are better, so you can go through the whole journey with folks. Keith, do you want to take it? We got
you have 10:55. I do want to make sure we hear from those we have not heard from, and so we're going to hear from Roxanne. Then, if we have time, Stacey, we will try to get back to you. But if not, we'll definitely figure out ways for you to definitely get your question answered by Board Member Zeff. So.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me? This
Yeah.
is Roxanne. So I want to give a shout out to Elise Blaylock, who I think asked a question in the chat, which is heavy on Spark's mind. So essentially, we saw a slide that said small schools would only be able to have one of 3: music, art, gym. And I think we all want to know, is this going to apply to us at Spark if our funding is reduced due to not meeting the threshold of attendees? And we were told to join this call. Hopefully we would get a little more light shed on it. Now we're told to complete the survey. Okay, we'll do that. I'm new to Spark, new to Atlanta Public Schools. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around all of this. It's a learning process. But I think at the baseline, that is a question that we would really like to understand the answer to. What is our risk of losing or only having one of the three, music, art, gym at Spark going forward?
Dr. Zeff, I can help if you need help.
Please.
All right, I'm going to share real quick the slide that people point to at this because it's definitely confusing for those of us not involved in these conversations. So these are slides that have been provided by the consultants in a lot of our meetings that talk about how the state funds different positions and schools. And so what they're showing is that for schools that have less than 450 at elementary and then 600 at middle, 1,000 at high school, they fund certain positions for those schools. When it's less than 400, you'll see that they don't fund an art teacher, a music teacher, or a PE teacher. And when it's funded, when the school is at over 450, you at least get an art teacher or one of the three. The district funds way more using local revenue than what the state does to make up for all of these things. So when you look at a lot of the gray areas, we fund all of that regardless of the size of the school, which is also putting us in that position that regardless if you have 200 or 300 kids or 600, 700, 800, 900 kids, we want to make sure that you have access to that programming. So every school has art and music and PE. So what they were sharing was basically the funding model from the state. We would get extra funding if our schools met that minimum kind of threshold, not that because you're less than 450, you now have to pick something. So it was not related to specific to the APS funding model, but how the state funds public schools.
Thank you for that, Travis. And can you put that link in the chat so folks can dive into it? Appreciate you.
All right, thank you, Travis and Stacy. It is 10:57. We got a popcorn question real quick that we can answer. Then we're going to turn it over to Board Member Zeff.
I'm not sure if it's a real quick question, and I feel like the bearer of bad news today, but I keep hearing about this great progress that APS has made when it comes to the milestones and in our cluster, but it seems that progress only applies to certain students. The number of Black students in the proficient and distinguished categories in math, let's say in 7th grade, has declined by 7 percentage points and continues to decline. Similarly, the number of Black students in the lowest category, the beginner category, has increased by 6 points and continues to increase. And yet, the number of students in the distinguished and proficient category, white students, has increased by 8 percentage points. So there seems to be something going on there. And so my question to you is really, what are we doing about the achievement gap? As a mother of Black children in the district, it really is disheartening to see that, we continue to say how great everything's going, and yet for Black students, it's not going great. So what is the plan to address that?
There's a lot there, Stacey. Thanks for lifting it up. And I hope folks I hope I didn't come across as saying we got everything on lock. I was sharing some data just to share at a broad level. And with that, it's been unpacked, and a lot of the progress is not evenly distributed. So first, let me just clarify, we're not Pollyanna. We're eyes wide open here. What I would say is the investments that we're making in getting high quality teachers in front of every kid, because it's not an achievement gap, it's an opportunity gap. Our kids are creative, resourceful, and whole. We need to make sure that we as the adults are putting our best and brightest in front of our kids, and supporting our best and brightest to continue that work. So we hear you. We are measuring it as part of our strategic plan, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. But thank you for lifting it up, and I'd encourage you, and I know I don't have to encourage you to do this, but keep holding us accountable, because that is the work that we're engaged in. I see we are at time. A lot of ground to cover here. So let me just first of all, thank you for this engagement. Thank you for asking the tough questions, and we hear you. We're taking it back, and we're trying to is informing the work. You'll get an email later today with more with some of the scenarios on the facility master plan. This is not, I hope folks didn't feel like this was the conversation to have the facility master plan, get it all resolved. We're taking input back, but on Monday and over the coming weeks, Travis put the link in the chat. Lots of opportunities to engage. And really what I would encourage you to do is walk through the process so you understand the data that got us to where the scenarios that are on the table, because this is nuance. And we're using they're trying to be very surgical and thoughtful in this process. I haven't had a chance to read through all the stuff in the chat, but we'll get back to folks with those questions. And look, thank you for staying engaged, and we'll look forward to seeing you. We have a board meeting in a couple weeks, but if you can't make the board meeting, you don't have to rush the board meeting. We'll be doing these meetings. And Katie, do you want to shout out your community meeting?
Yep, I'm sure you'll be joining, Ken.
When is your community meeting?
And yeah, Ken's like, I don't know, actually. Just kidding. Not to put you on the spot. It's September 5th, Friday at 10 o'clock. I'm looking forward to us going out as a board and discussing everything we've been talking about today, especially data. Thank you, Stacy, for lifting up what you did. But yes, I also want to make sure I engage with folks on a regular basis, especially right now. So I will have a meeting on the 5th. I have another one planned for the first Friday in October and the first Friday in November. And Ken and I are going to join up too, because obviously we have overlap and we want to maximize folks' time. But we're here for you.
Watch your emails for that. Thank you again, and have a restful weekend. We'll get right back at it on Monday. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Everyone have a good weekend.
Thanks, everybody.